All right, we got to get these things so being bright. I got to turn it down a little bit. Lord. All right. Well, we got a bit of a mess here. And I probably don't need my bank statements to be on here, so let me just do a little rearranging real quick, like KOA. Bammo. All right. Hey guys, it has been a little bit. I am kind of making this a live slash just a video that talks about what the heck I've been going through. So basically, some of my regular viewers know that I've been dealing with some issues over the last number of years. And for those of you that don't know my channel, I don't upload very often. But the bottom line is we had a hurricane, Cat 5 Hurricane Michael in 2018. And immediately after the storm, I was outside with my new chainsaw and I was trying to cut up some trees. And I had just terrible fatigue and even muscle weakness. All the muscles were burning. And I thought, what the heck is going on? You know, this was late October, probably I would say. Sorry, my dog is playing with the ball and it's getting annoying. I'm going to put him out. But I just didn't know what was going on, you know, and it got worse. And I've been having some issues over time where I would kind of go through these periods of fatigue that would just hit me out of the blue. Sometimes I could tell they were coming, but they would last typically maybe 2 or 3 days. And sometimes during that period of time, I might just wake up and have breakfast and go back to bed. I had no energy. And then I was having some issues with fingers hurting and things like that. So needless to say, after a while, it became more and more common, and I had no choice but to go to the doctor. And mind you, I've been having a problem with my back for a number of years, and it would radiate around into my rib area right about here. Not quite to the sternum, but in this rib, it would hurt like a sword was sticking through me. And I would call it my working back because it would happen whenever I would work. If I worked all day, it would happen. If I worked on a project for hours, it would happen, especially sitting upright, you know, at a desk, and whether it's typing on the keyboard or assembling an RC helicopter or whatever I was doing. So if you see me, you'll see I'm always leaning back. And if I'm driving down the road, my seat is back, because when I'm upright, it's like it compresses the middle of my back and it just hurts. But yet, when I go to get x-rays, MRIs, CT scans, you name it, they can find nothing except for a little bit of osteoarthritis, old age arthritis, which is completely different, by the way, than rheumatoid arthritis. But long story short, um, I've been through the ringer, guys. It's, you know, and ladies, if you're here, it's killed my car hobby. What used to take me 2 days can take me 6, 8, 10, 12 months now or longer. My 49's been on the lift since July of last year. And what have I done in that time? I disconnected the lower radiator hose lines, disconnected the, what did I do? There's a wiring harness. Oh, and the steering links from the column down to the steering box. So I was going to pull the engine out, and I was going to remount everything, re-weld the mounts, and make it sitting lower. And I pulled the rear end out. And then later, many months later, I cut off the brackets. And then months later, I welded the brackets back on the rear end. And the reason was that my engine, this is the radiator, the engine is sitting, lower in the back. But in that car, it's more extreme than it should be. And then I had the rear axle, which I was trying to match the angle. So I had the pinion up. And then I later found out you can put the pinion down as long as the angle is right. So bringing the pinion down lowers the back of the drive shaft a little bit, reduces this angle. And at this point, the rear end is finally ready to go back in the car. And it's been that way now for something like 3 to 4 months. And I just haven't had the energy to go and work on the dang car. I get things done, but I have to give priority to what I want to do. So that's kind of the really quick and short part of the story. Yes, there were doctors. I went to a rheumatologist. I switched later. I didn't like the first one. I'm not real crazy about the second. I've been going there for at least 3 years. I've met the doctor 2 times. The first time, which I forgot when I met him the second time, and that's it. I don't even see the guy running around the place. He's just whatever he's doing, he's not there. So you deal with these PAs, and they just have like they literally have like a clipboard, okay, he's diagnosed with, the RA, whatever, is autoimmune disease. Let's give him DMARDs. Okay, let's try another DMARD. Let's try another DMARD. Always in a flare, put him on steroids. And then finally, the DMARDs don't work. Let's put him on a biologic, which I could be wrong, but there's a lot of money in biologics. The dose I was on, Simpani area, was $14,000 per month. That's what they bill the insurance. Now, then, of course, the insurance won't pay that much. They only pay something like 6 or 7, or maybe it's 3 or 4. I don't know what it is. And I guess the rest gets written off. But there's a lot of money flying around, and one could be led to believe there could be an incentive to put you on these things. But anyway, the Simpani it knocked me down so bad. It gave me the worst case of costochondritis, which is when your ribs, the joints of your ribs where they meet your spine and your breastbone, they're a joint, but not this kind of joint. They're not a joint that bends, or a joint that just kind of flexes, and a costovertebral joint, something like that. So those joints are often targeted with ankylosing spondylitis, apparently, less commonly, I believe, with rheumatoid. And I believe that ankylosing spondylitis is what I have, even though I don't have the gene that's kind of a typical, I guess, prerequisite. There's a certain gene they can check for. I don't have that gene, so I'm not predisposed to ankylosing spondylitis. But, rheumatoid usually affects like finger joints and other joints like that more so than your ribs and your spine. I have really bad spinal inflammation. Anyway, so the rib pain started before I got that steroid or that biologic. I will say that. That's why I got it, because it kept happening. It happened, and then I would knock it down, and then it would happen again a month later. But when I got the first dose of biologic, it happened for 3 weeks straight. I could barely function. I finally knocked it down with steroids, which, mind you, that was December of 22, and I've been on steroids since that day. Since the day I went back in there and said that my ribs are killing me, and my sternum and all that. Steroids are really bad for you, by the way. But anyway, after a few months on that one, I switched to another one, because every time I got the first one, this would come back with a vengeance. And when I took the new one, which was similar, about the same price, I forget the name of it, it didn't happen. Like it was there, but it didn't get worse. And over about a 3-month period, it gradually kind of went away. So I thought, all right, we're on the right track. Well, about the 4th month in, which would have been around June, I was feeling zero relief at all from this biologic. Yes, when I would get the dose, it would not make the costo come back, but it was just, it's a poison. I mean, if you look up this is black label medications, cancer and just all kinds of bad things. So in June, we had a trip planned, and towards the end of June, all of a sudden, I started having really bad spinal inflammation, which always leads to radiating around and causing pain in my ribs and my sternum, and sometimes my breastbone, chest pain, all this other stuff. And it kicked in June. And if I recall correctly, I don't know the exact timing, but I went in to get my next dose, and I thought, well, maybe it's time for the next dose. Maybe it's wearing off. It made no difference. It didn't make it worse, but it didn't make it better either. And the entire month of July, I spent most of my time either reclining on the couch or in bed, hardly getting anything done. The very first part of July, we were coming back from that trip, and I found out about a bluegrass get-together. I'm a bluegrass junkie. I'm learning to play banjo, trying to. And we went to this bluegrass thing with a whole bunch of my friends that were there at the campground. And I never took the banjo out of the case. I came out and talked to some friends one night. The rest of the time, I was just hurting so bad I could not think straight. So basically, this was last summer. So getting you guys up to speed here, without trying not to make this video stupidly long, but suffice to say, all the sum total is that my life is really screwed up right now. I cannot do very much. Sometimes I feel good and I can do things, but a lot of time, everything I do all day long is dominated by my condition. I'm hurting right now. My back's killing me. I'm hurting right here a little bit. Fingers and legs and arms and all that are okay. My hips were bothering me earlier today, but I did get some work done on the boat yesterday. So, I can maybe blame the boat a little bit because I did some things, but I was I have a video I need to put up. I was installing the new charge box that plugs in the wall basically. So it provides, I believe it's 80 amps of power to charge the battery, run the air conditioner. But where I had it at, it was kind of down in a little recess and it didn't have as much ventilation as I wanted. So I built a little tabletop and then moved the air conditioning controller back down under it and then built this little table that sits about 7 inches above that and then mounted that charge controller so that it had an air intake right through the filter for the air conditioning system and it blows the hot air into the air conditioning system where it would be cooled and recirculated. So anyway, I did do that yesterday, and so that involves some work and kind of bending over to work on that, and it probably didn't make my back any happier. But the day before that, when I hadn't done anything, I was in severe pain all day, and I did ice packs, I did heating pads, I did ibuprofen, I tried sleeping it off. I tried everything, stretches, you name it. And finally, at the end of the day, I had no choice but to take something, an actual painkiller, and it barely touched it. It barely touched it. And yet, the very next day, while I did hurt in the morning a little bit, I felt good enough to do some work, and I did. And so now we're back to today, which was not as bad as 2 days ago, but it's been pretty bad. In fact, we were going to take a drive today because I've been kind of locked up for 2 weeks around here, barely doing anything. And we wanted to get out and do something, get rid of cabin fever. I literally got in the car. We need to go to the gas station up the road. It's about, I don't know, half a mile, 3/4 mile away. We were about halfway to the gas station, and I realized I could not sit in the car. Like, I can't do it. I'm going to make myself much worse. Now, if I had laid back, I'd be okay, but it's hard to reach the steering wheel if you're laid all the way back. And Melissa didn't really want to drive, all the way to where we were going and back, which I understand. She'd rather I drove. So she said, let's just go home and forget about it because no point in hurting yourself. So that's it. That was my day. I went half a mile or less, turned around and came back, and I ended up going to bed. Back to the story now. So I get back from this, get home from this bluegrass thing I went to where I did nothing. And it was time for my next dose was coming up. And I decided the morning of, I'm not going to get this damn poison put into my blood because it's not helping me. And so I called and said, I'm not coming. So about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I'd say within 2 weeks of the missed dose, when it finally started really wearing off, it was like somebody took a ton of bricks off my shoulders. I woke up one morning. I could not believe it. I felt great. I said, I'm going to get something done today. And it started what was going to be 7 weeks of very hard work through the hottest August and September that I can remember around here. And I worked and worked and I tore a big deck out. I built a huge retaining wall, had to tear another deck up to build the retaining wall under the deck. I set everything on the retaining wall with 6x6 posts, hand dug all the holes for that. Completely rebuilt the pavilion that the deck was on, wrapped all the 4x4 posts in built out trim, like made them look bigger at the bottom and then capped them and repainted the whole thing. It was unbelievable. I moved about 40 or 50 wheelbarrow fulls of dirt to fill in and backfill behind the retaining walls. It's unbelievable. And then, just like that, the costochondritis set back in with a vengeance, and my ribs were just so bad. And so this whole time I'm on steroid doses, prednisone around 10 to 15 milligrams, which is extremely, bad for you in the long term, especially. So I committed to get rid of it. And I'm going to fast forward the story a little bit because it was just more suffering from October all the way through. And so I got worse and worse and worse. And I said, I don't care if I'm in bed and I can't do anything. I'm going to get off the steroids. So I got down to 3 milligrams per day. And it takes a while. And you're supposed to go like 3 and then 4 and then 3 and then 2 and 3 and 2 and then all the way down till you get to 0. So I was at 3 and I was suffering immensely. And Melissa taught me going to the doctor. So I went to my general and I said, I don't really like my rheumatologist. What should I do? He said, you should get on an anti-inflammatory because you're really bad right now. And he noticed I was pushing on my rib joints. He said, try this. He put me on indomethacin, which I had not had before. And I actually tolerated that pretty well. It didn't really bother my stomach a lot. First, I started taking it with famotidine, and I was taking a little bit more famotidine than the max on the label, but I read about studies where they took twice the label and it was no issue. But the famotidine, taking 3 a day instead of 2, caught up with me in a couple of weeks, and so I had to stop it. But I found that by then I was able to tolerate the indomethacin, which, by the way, I was on a high dose of that. I think it was 50 times 3, which is the rheumatoid dose. The recommended is 25 times 3, but you can go to 50. And he told me as much. He said, I'm starting on a high dose because you're really bad. I took this indomethacin, and on the very first one, within 2 hours, I had relief I hadn't felt in a couple of months. And after a couple of days, I was a new person. I mean, it was unbelievable, but I was starting to have some side effects. So I went back to the doctor and I got half the dose, 25s, and I took 25 times 4. And I tolerated that for 2 or 3 weeks. And I literally went to a bluegrass event back in, I guess it was March, late March or early April. And I got my banjo out, which is that particular one was the heaviest one I have, is about 13 pounds. And I jammed for 7 hours straight. When a jam would shut down, I'd walk to another one. The next night, I carried it around for 4 hours, walking around, talking to people, jumping into a jam, packaging it back up. Went over and stood with another guy, and he played my banjo for a while. A super good player, and it was just unbelievable. I didn't sit down or anything, but then that would catch up with me. And then I went to another event, and I was like, well, I better not jam for 7 hours. Let me do 4 or 5 hours, and I can do it tomorrow night. But each event that I went to here this spring, it would be less time that I could do it and more side effects. So now, fast forward to just a few weeks ago, and the side effects got really bad. I was getting really bad anxiety. I was having kind of like paranoia, uh, which is not entirely just the medication. Imagine being in pain that you can't escape and having hope that this new medication is going to get you there, that there's a way out. Well, then you can hurt for a while. Humans can tolerate a lot of pain, but bottom line is that in my case, I've been dealing with this now for severe pain for about a year and a half. That's affecting my life every single day. And so I would, okay, well, I'm going to have this biologic. It's going to take a couple of months. I'm going to start feeling better. So, you just deal with it. But when everything has failed and I can't tolerate the medications or they're not helping, and then you get this one medication that just lights up your world, is amazing. I could do things I want to do. I thought I was going to be out walking the trails in the Smoky Mountains again, and to be let down, and then to have the side effects of the anxiety. Yeah, I was freaking out, no doubt. I mean, um, and that medication, that indomethacin, when you're on it, and I guess there's probably a withdrawal phase for at least a week or so. Um, you when you lose hope and you don't know, like, this is it. There is like no escape from the pain. Um, you've Nothing works. I mean, even a good painkiller is only going to get you a couple hours. And then you have the side effects of the painkiller. For me, it's always a headache. If I take something that's good, I'll have a bad headache within 3 or 4 hours, sometimes the next day as well. Not to mention, being that I'm really trying to learn the banjo, I need all the few brain cells I have left in my old age at 100%, not high on some kind of painkiller. And so I found that when I take the painkiller, it diminishes my ability to play, and I'm already not very good. So kind of the situation there. Anyway, so to the subject of the video is the carnivore diet. So about the 13th or so, I believe, is when I decided to start the carnivore. So that's 2 weeks today. I had for lunch that day, I had lasagna. It was homemade. It was really good. Melissa made it. It was excellent lasagna. But of course, it wasn't diet lasagna. It was full blown lasagna with the whatever you call the crap in there that's like spaghetti, pasta shell, or it's just bad for you. There's no doubt. And we had kind of slipped into this going back. I still avoid sugar, although I wouldn't turn down a good dessert, at a restaurant every now and then, especially if I'm hurting, because having a treat is like a distraction for that few minutes, even though the sugar and the carbs are all inflammatory and bad for you. But when nothing you're taking works, who cares, right? So anyway, I had lasagna that day for lunch, and I saw a couple of videos on YouTube that day about the carnivore diet, which I had seen before and kind of rolled my eyes at it because, like so many people, I'm like, you can't just eat meat and eggs and bacon and butter, and it just doesn't work. Well, Dr. Berg, Berg, who I highly recommend any of you out there struggling with trying to lose weight, or looking at diabetes, approaching, or just any other kind of issues like that, but especially for motivation. Watch some of his videos on insulin resistance, on nutrition, and how the food that you eat goes into your body and what it does, and it will scare you into. One of his videos is all it took. I watched. I don't remember which one it was, and I'm like, man, I'm killing myself. With the sugar and these other things. And so I went hardcore keto. I lost 40 pounds in 6 months. I mean, I really stuck to keto. But by the way, if you ever get on keto, be very careful. Many things have hidden sugars in them, maltodextrin and dextrose, and a few other names that are basically a flavorless sugar that's worse for you than sugar. They're in all these keto products. They're fillers and artificial sweeteners. You've got to be very careful what you get. But long story short, if you want to lose weight, go see Dr. Berg's videos. Anyway, so he mentioned carnivore, and it was the first time I'd ever seen him. He always really talks about keto and everything, but he mentioned carnivore diet. And when he mentioned it, it kind of perked me up a little bit, like, okay, let me go back and see what he's talking about. So I thought maybe he would recommend against it, but no, he said, if you're dealing with these problems and this isn't working, then you can consider trying the carnivore diet as a kind of elimination diet to eliminate other things, veggies and other things as a possible inflammatory component of your diet. So on the 13th of May, I went carnivore for dinner. And I couldn't even tell you. I think we already had some steak that we were going to make like that night or the next. And it's okay. This will be easy. I'll just eat the steak. Nothing else. Water, steak, salt. So I did that. Technically speaking, it depends on the carnivore. Full, true carnivore, you wouldn't really have eggs or butter, any kind of dairy type products, along with obviously no sugar, no other drinks, just water, salt, and red meat. Like you could do lamb, you could do zebra, cows, but you wouldn't do chicken and other things. But this is a little bit looser version of carnivore, where I'm doing fish, chicken, and red meats, as well as I'm doing butter for the fat content. So butter is kind of my dessert. Every now and then I'll have a spoonful of butter. water, and I allow myself. Usually, I'll let myself have one Zevia, which is a stevia only sweetened cola, and I'll allow myself a coffee in the morning. I just started doing that a couple of days ago. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep doing that. It has definitely affected my weight loss. So today, my average weight loss across the period is 1 pound per day. So I'm down 13 pounds. I started at 216, and today I'm at 202.75. So 13 and a quarter, roughly speaking. Um, and I've been on a plateau for the last couple of days, and I dropped a pound last night. Now, I also decided to go on a fast, the first time I've ever fasted on purpose. I did fast one other time because of food poisoning. But yesterday I decided to fast. I didn't feel well. So I skipped dinner, I skipped breakfast, and I skipped lunch today. Now, the problem is I've been hurting really bad today. So I took 5 milligrams of a painkiller that I've got a prescription to. And it kind of made me feel later on, 4 or 5, 6 hours later after I took it, I felt a little bit nauseous and I felt like it was time to eat. So I've been 24-hour fast. I don't know if I'll be able to do a 2 or 3 day fast. I really would like to do a multi-day fast, drinking only water to really kind of purge out my system. But we'll see how that goes. Now, for those of you that might, think, hey, the carnivore diet is something that, I might be interested in doing to lose weight or deal with a autoimmune situation or some other conditions. I will tell you that for me, it was not too hard because I had already gone through the keto transition a couple of years back. Um, that was a rough couple of days to cut the sugar out. I really had unbelievable cravings. Now, with keto, you can do fat bombs, which is like, I don't know, peanut butter and some other stuff, some kind of chocolate, but it's all sugar free. And it has to be something like erythritol or whatever the heck it's called, or stevia, monk fruit. You cannot do Splenda, NutraSweet, that sort of thing. But anyway, those few days I really broke the keto numbers because you're supposed to, count your carbs, make them under 45 or whatever your target is. And I'm like, I'm eating a fat bomb. I'm having a keto chocolate bar. I don't care. I got to have something. It was crazy. The sugar addiction is really something else. But, after a few days, and really just that one first day was the worst. And then from there, I think it was attenuated because I thought I was doing real keto. But the fact of the matter is that I was getting some products, not a lot, but some products that I thought were keto because they said they were keto, but they were full of maltodextrin. And that included Truvia sweeteners full of maltodextrin or dextrose. The brand I get now, I get off of Amazon, and it has just I call it erythanol, but it's a sugar alcohol, and it is acceptable. It doesn't trigger your insulin. And then that is either with stevia or with monk fruit. And they're okay, they're not as warm as real sugar. And for the longest time in the last 2 years, I've avoided sugar as much as I really could. I don't drink regular Coke, sweet tea. If I have, it's because that's what they gave me. And I said, well, I'll just drink this one anyway. I could count on my fingers how many sweet drinks I've had in the last 2 years. So I'm already like semi-conditioned, compared to the standard American diet, where everything you have that you eat and drink has sugar in it, whether you want it there or not. Bacon has sugar in it. Most bacons have sugar. Sausages. I mean, it's just crazy. You got to really label watch. So carnivore, uh, it's basically a protein and fat diet. You're really supposed to have a ratio of about 2 to 1. So if you eat, I don't know, a typical steak, or average steak out there is some amount of fat on it. You're supposed to eat all that fat. And really, there's more protein than there's fat. I still haven't figured out how to get enough fat. So one way you can do it is use lots of butter. So the butter will bring your fat count up. And you have to get your body to start learning how to burn fat. You've got to give it enough in the right ratio, that it doesn't think you're in famine because you're no longer getting sugar and carbs. And after some period of time, some people say 2 weeks, some people say 6 to 8 weeks, you become fat adapted. And then as long as you're eating a regular amount of food, until you're not hungry, you don't want to force feed yourself, and you don't starve yourself, but you just kind of attenuate that, and your body's like, hey, there's fat right here. I can eat this fat, and then the fat goes away. And some pretty amazing videos out there on YouTube. Many people, you know, some famous people even. And on top of that, going into the comments of videos, it's comment after comment after comment of people that have benefited from this diet, weight loss, turning around problems that are brought on by the high sugar and carb content of the food, and autoimmune diseases like whatever the hell I've got. Sugar, inflammation. Unfortunately, though, there's also a lot of histamines in eggs, which is a staple for me in the morning, and pork has quite a bit. So ideally, you would really limit your eggs, but the eggs are great for fat content. So if I eliminated butter and eggs, which is probably what I should do right now to fully, put myself into this carnivore thing where I can really isolate down to the minimum, so I can find out if these inflammatory issues will go away. I don't know how I get enough fat. So that's what I've got to figure out. Anyway, so 2 weeks in, let's see. Yeah, tomorrow will be, I started dinner 2 weeks ago today. So in the morning and the lunch 2 weeks ago, I was not on this. So tomorrow morning is actually the 2 week period and the 14th day. So 1 pound per day. How have I felt throughout it? Not too bad. I've felt almost no hunger. I had no problem doing a 24-hour fast 2 weeks in. It took about a week, less than a week in, when I looked at Melissa. She's doing it too. And I said, are you hungry? This was around lunchtime. She says, not at all. We skipped lunch and we ate dinner, but we weren't really even starving. And we almost had to make ourselves eat, at like 5:30 or 6, so it wasn't too late. And there's been a couple of days, especially since I added the coffee back in, where I have a bit of an appetite for lunch. So, but that said, I drank coffee on my fast. I had coffee for breakfast and coffee for dinner. So not too bad. Now, that said, I took a painkiller today, 5 milligrams. It upset my stomach a little bit after 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And I did eat a piece of chicken today. So I had a chicken breast that we did in the air fryer. I'm having really bad fatigue and muscle weakness right now. And that has to do with this transition period where I'm used to carbs and my body is not fully adapted to making energy with the fat yet. So I definitely can feel it. And I was painting today a little bit and holding my arm up. My muscles are burning. My leg muscles are burning. That's normal and it will pass. So option 15, I can always have a carb, but I am being so good right now. And I'm excited to lose the weight. I'm down to 202 and 3/4. I'm going to be back in the 100 soon. It's been about a year since I've been there. I put on 16 pounds. Actually, at the peak, I put on about 17 or 18 pounds, but I've gone back down a little bit in the period of time that I was on the indomethacin. I was very active compared to what I normally am. Walking and walking. Anytime I get a chance to get out and walk somewhere, let's go to the store, let's go walk the trails. That's what I was doing. And it really helps. It got rid of 2 or 3 pounds. But so anyway, this is the beginning of my carnivore journey. And I plan to make some much shorter videos on the subject. But I just wanted to put this out here for everybody. A lot of people that are friends of mine, they know what I'm going through. I talk about this everywhere I go. And the reason is that I just don't participate in social events as much as I would like to. When I go to the Bluegrass Festival, this last one I was at, we were there for 5 days, and somebody was jamming from about 10 o'clock in the morning until at least midnight every day. And on Thursday and Friday nights, they were jamming until 3 a.m. So you do the math. If you carried your instrument over to a jam and sat there and played until it was done and went to another jam, you could bridge between the jams and get 12, 14, 15 hours of jamming in a day if you're physically capable. And for me, that's typically anywhere from 30 minutes to maybe on the very first day, on a really good day, without indomethacin, it's about 2 hours, maybe three if I'm really doing good. And I'm on a painkiller after that if I want to even walk or do anything. So what do I end up doing? I jam until I'm hurting so bad I can't take it anymore. I go back to the camper and I just lean back in my recliner, and I watch YouTube, and it's terrible. So I wouldn't recommend it to anybody out there if you're, thinking about getting something like this. I just would recommend you consider other things to do with your time than get a rheumatoid or autoimmune condition, for the lack of a better word. Uh, let's see who's out there. Nobody's out there right now. I see some people watch, but anyway, these kind of videos are not real good probably for a bunch of people jumping in that are here for car videos. But yeah, it's a big part of why I stopped making videos. I mean, I know that there are other reasons that I've also pointed out of why I've kind of left YouTube proper, but this is definitely a big piece of it. It's just not possible for me to make videos and put all the time into it and take multiple shots of something and get it right so it looks good on the video. It's just not possible for me anymore. I hope that changes one day. But in any case, that is my rheumatoid story. Oh, by the way, and I am going to end the video after this because it's getting really long. So I was at the rheumatologist. I went back here just recently, and I asked not the doctor, who I don't ever see, but I asked the PA point blank. I said, well, first I offered him up my diagnosis, which is a condition. I'll tell you what it's called. NRAXSPA, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis. And what that means, this is a common denominator for my situation. What that means, non-radiographical, means that the condition does not present evidence on x-rays, which has been one of the problems. I have the severe back pain, and it moves around. Usually it's dead center in my back, right lined up with this lower rib, which is where it's hurt me now. But other times I'll get inflammation more towards the base of my spine, and it'll be so bad that it'll cause sciatica. And I actually had bilateral sciatica. Let's see, that would be a week ago. Bilateral sciatica. Look it up. It's very bad. It usually indicates very serious conditions. It's extremely rare to happen under ankylosing spondylitis. I assume that it could happen under rheumatoid, and it would be equally very rare. But I have it. Long story short, there was one day I really couldn't even walk. I was on ice packs all day and everything. But anyway, I went in, and I said, could I have this non-radiographical ankylosing spondyloarthritis? And he said, well, maybe. He said, we diagnosed you with rheumatoid and whatever. And I said, well, what about ankylosing spondylitis? And he said, well, we tested you for that gene. There's some kind of gene. I don't think you have to have it in order to have ankylosing spondylitis, but it is an indicator, or makes you predisposed to it. But anyway, so that he said, look, your diagnosis is just to get the insurance to pay. He said, that's all it really means. It doesn't mean anything. And that was something that, I'm not surprised. I'm kind of surprised they admitted it, but that was also a factor. I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm paying, when I'm getting these 14,000 IVs, I'm paying $300. It's $80 copay, 200 and change bill comes on the backside. And it knocks me down for a day, and it's incredibly bad for you, and just all these things. And it's not helping, most importantly. But So we do all that. It's just throwing something at the wall. And so then at the same appointment, he said, well, maybe you have fibromyalgia. Why don't we try treating you for that and see what happens? I mean, these people have no idea. And maybe they're not supposed to, but I'm just saying, why am I coming in and paying $80 to see you guys all the time? And you're giving me all these poisons, these black label poisons that can literally could kill you on the spot or cause cancer. And you don't even know what the hell I have. So that's why I'm now trying this approach with the diet. I got to say right now, it has not helped one bit. The only good news is I'm sleeping better, which is great news. Sleep is good. And I've lost the 13 pounds. But beyond that, no difference. I have all the same symptoms over and over and over. It could be my big toe. It could be this thumb, both thumbs. It could be my hips. It could be my knees. It could be a bad headache for a day or two. Upper back, lower back. I mean, you just don't know what it's going to be. The interesting thing, though, is that if one part of my back hurts bad, the other part doesn't. I don't think I could even think of a time where I even felt any of my middle back pain when it was extremely bad in my lower back. So I don't know. It's really a strange thing. All right. Well, this has gone on long enough, and you guys know more about me than you did. If I ever get ahead of this, I'll probably make more videos. I miss making them, but I just literally just can't do it anymore, guys. So thanks for watching. I'll post an update at some point in the next couple of weeks, letting you know if I'm still on this diet and where things are. Catch you later.